One, two, three, four.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore. Stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Katie.
And I have a 14-year-old and two 11-year-olds.
And I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we're going to start today with a chat about where the show has been and where it's headed for this, our 200th episode milestone. And it's also our first episode back from our early school year break. So I was noodling this around in my head as far as like what the trajectory of our show has been since it started. And to me, it seemed to pretty clearly fall in 3 phases. So I'm going to outline them for you, Deborah, and then I'd be interested to know if you feel the same or if you think I'm totally off base. So let's see how this goes. All right. So phase 1. You know, your kids have always been a little bit older than mine, so maybe you were a little farther into this. But certainly when we first started, it was just pure panic for me over the strict screen time rules that seemed to set us up to fail, coupled with just a general frustration with the popularity of what we saw as really awful programming for kids. I think the touch point for us when we first started the show was we wanted a space to talk about how horrible Caillou was. Does that track?
Mm-hmm, totally.
All right. And then phase 2, thankfully, a growing sense of peace as we embraced co-viewing and really seeking out the best of children's programming that we could at least attempt to enjoy with our kids. Things started to feel a little less proscriptive, and we started taking a more active role to like find the good stuff, and that felt good. Mm-hmm. And then now here we are in phase 3, where we are the lone stalwart champions of professionally produced content in the face of the proliferation of YouTube and TikTok. And we're also navigating this tricky area of our kids' growing screen time independence. When I think back, we first covered toy opening or toy unboxing videos on YouTube in like our 7th episode. It was a long time ago. So it's not like we've been unaware of YouTube as a phenomenon for kids' content. But it felt like so much of an aberration there. Whereas now there are like entire generations of families where all they watch with their kids is YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. How do you feel like that trajectory maps onto your experience of our podcast?
I think it totally tracks. Like we started it, we didn't know a ton. We expected to just be like complaining about kids programming, which we did some. But then the more we watched, the more we learned, the more we appreciated the good stuff. So yeah, totally. Now we're really trying to find good things to watch to make recommendations for parents and families on what they can enjoy together. After all, it is my screen time too.
I hate to say this because I want to be like cynical and eye rolly all the time because we are actual Gen X and elder millennials. But I even find myself appreciating the hard work that goes into the bad stuff now. Is that terrible?
Oh, I can see that. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So we've definitely changed a lot from a bi-weekly podcast with occasional swears in those early episodes even. I don't know what we thought we were doing. Like, I don't even swear in my regular life anymore. To a weekly, more streamlined affair, but as ever, at the risk of sounding cheesy, my favorite part has always been hanging out with my co-host for a dose of humor and sanity in my parenting journey.
Totally. I teach a podcasting class now, so this podcast has even led to a like new career path for me. And I always talk about like the benefits of podcasting, besides monetization, because the truth is that most independent podcasts don't make any money. They're like a fun thing to do, a hobby. And I always mention staying in touch with my good friend Katie because I don't think we would be scheduling these conversations without the podcast. I do think that we would stay in touch, but it would be in a different, our friendship would look different if we didn't have this podcast project together.
For sure. It makes me feel very lucky. And it's nice to have someone who's like just like one step farther down on the parenting road than I am, because I feel like I always have someone to ask for sage advice. And I like to think that the fact that things are always so chaotic on my end feels good to you because you could be like, woo, I survived all of that and I was never that harried.
I think the only time I feel that way is like potty training because that's just like one phase of parenting that I'm glad I'm totally over.
Yeah, for sure. We're lucky to be out of those days too.
Yeah. Should we talk about spooky season?
Let's do it.
We have a review today. Spooky Halloween, October season, pumpkin spice time is possibly our favorite season, maybe second only to the winter holidays for kids content. But there are not a ton of spooky new shows or movies this year. Does that bum you out, Katie?
It does bum me out because I always look forward to forcing my children to arbitrarily recognize holidays because I feel warmly towards them. And when we can't sit down and like watch whatever is the new thing on Netflix to celebrate, it just makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah, I think Beetlejuice is like the biggest one. And that came out like in early September. So it didn't even feel Halloween-y time to me.
Well, Deborah, you know pumpkin spice season starts in August, so like time means
That's true.
nothing.
Well, we are reviewing today a new Halloween show, The Bad Guys Haunted Heist. We're reviewing it because the Bad Guys franchise has been long running, but we've somehow never covered it. The original movie came out in 2022, and according to Wikipedia, DreamWorks confirmed a sequel is coming with a release date of August 1st, 2025, so we'll put that on the watch list. And there was a holiday special called The Bad Guys, A Very Bad Holiday, released on Netflix in November of 2023. So this special that we're watching is on Netflix, made by DreamWorks Animation. It came out October 3rd, 2024. It's rated TVY7. It's 25 minutes long, so it's not a true movie, feature film length. One of my kids felt tricked because they thought they were signing up for like a 90-minute time. The brief summary, according to IMDb, is the bad guys' Halloween night of thievery and crime turns into a night of terror when they come across a dangerous enemy of the supernatural kind that gives them a taste of their own medicine.
Well, the first question is always the most important. Did you like it?
I thought it was cute and fun, although I did not know any of the characters, and I think I would have enjoyed it more if I knew who the bad guys actually were.
Right. I guess we should have mentioned up front that the Bad Guys movies are in fact based on a very, very popular series of graphic novels for young readers called The Bad Guys by, and I might mispronounce the last name. Is it Richard Blabey?
We have these books at my house, but because my kids can read, by the time they got to the bad guys, they could read independently. Like I just haven't availed myself of them.
Yeah, and I meant to take it off the shelf at our school library before we recorded, and I just didn't. So sorry. Yeah, I thought it was fine too. We've definitely watched better and much, much worse spooky content. So it was fine, but at no point was I, a grown-up, actually scared.
Fair. Which is what you want in a kid's Halloween show, honestly.
Yes. I mean, depending on the age range and the tolerance for spooky content. So why do you think, other than the fact that it's not actually spooky, which might be a selling point for you because you like spooky stuff even less than I do, why isn't this for grown-ups?
I think you could get into it if you were familiar with the characters. I don't know. I think this is enjoyable for grown-ups. I'm struggling to find something about why isn't this for grown-ups? Because like for me, I like Halloween season. I like all the trappings of haunted house aesthetics, but I don't want to actually be scared. So this is actually for me perfect. But for an adult who enjoys horror, you're not gonna be satisfied with the bad guys.
Can I pick a small nit that bothered
Hmm.
me about
Of
this as a
course.
grown up? Their names are their species. So it's Mr. Wolf and Mr. Snake and Mr. Shark. Does that mean that there is only one male wolf, snake, shark in the world? Or do they all have the same name? Or are the other sharks like Frank and Bob and Jim, and this one is just Mr. Shark?
Yeah, that is a sort of lack of imagination.
Did not care for that. Why is this for grown-ups? You mentioned that it was nice to have the trappings of a haunted house without being actually scared. Any other reasons?
I thought some of the plot was clever. Like when is it the shark plays the piano in the key of E to like solve the puzzle to get through to the next escape room level. I thought that was fun, unexpected.
You missed the most for grown-ups only quote in the whole thing that I wrote down just for you. He says as he's playing the piano, "Jazz heist. It's the loot you don't steal as much as you do." And I had to guffaw because that is a joke for Deborah, my jazz pianist friend.
It is about the notes you don't play.
I really liked the references to classic horror properties that cropped up, and I like to tell myself that those were intentional and not just lazy ripoffs. So you had allusions to things like The Telltale Heart, Portrait of Dorian Gray, and I think just in general, there was a prevailing Scooby-Doo-ishness to the whole plot that I found entertaining as a grown-up.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Totally Scooby-Doo style ending.
So, to get into the weeds a little bit, the big name talent from the theatrically released film has all been replaced with made for TV talent. Craig Robinson voiced Mr. Shark, Anthony Ramos voiced Mr. Piranha, Mark Maron was Mr. Snake, Sam Rockwell was Mr. Wolf, and Aquafina was Miss Tarantula. Some of these TV soundalikes were uncannily good. I thought the Mr. Wolf, who was voiced by Michael Godere, sounded spot on like Sam Rockwell. I don't know. Did the fact that I put the names of the original actors in the doc affect you at all as you were watching it?
You know, I didn't read that until afterward, and so I didn't, while I was watching it, didn't miss anybody. But now, knowing that, it makes me think of like how like a karaoke tune is sung by somebody who's not the actual pop star who popularized the song. And then, so that does kind of cheapen it a little bit. I'm sure it's just budget.
Yeah.
But I do feel a little robbed that I didn't get Aquafina as Ms. Tarantula. But if I did not know that that's who voiced the movie, Ms. Tarantula, I would have been fine with Mallory Lowe.
I don't know. That voice to me felt the most put on of all of them. Perhaps because Aquafina, I feel like of all of them, has the most distinctive voice. I don't know. But all these actors are doing very good work. It is not at all their fault, and in fact, to their benefit that they were hired to impersonate these more famous
Right.
voices in the Netflix special. Any thoughts on the writing? It looked like Aaron Blabey, and apologies again if I'm mispronouncing that last name, author of the original books, is still involved as a writer. So that's always cool when the original creator is involved in the adaptation process.
Yeah, that's great. I thought it was a pretty tight 25 minutes. Like the plot was fun and it surprised me. And I was even confused at a point, and I had to ask my child to help me out and explain it.
Do we give a spoiler warning so I could ask what confused you?
It was just like, who is putting it on? Like, who is deceiving who?
Oh,
Who?
yeah.
Who is deceiving who?
Deceptions within deceptions in this
Yeah.
one, for sure. What about the structure? How do you feel about the half-hour special format as opposed to an entire movie? It's a holiday celebration. I like the 24 minutes because it reminds me of it's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
because those were always just meant to fit in a regular television programming block. So I'm not bothered by it. What about you?
I like it. It reminds me of like late 1980s, 1990s television when there would be when sitcoms had very, very long seasons, like 26 episodes, and then they would do like a holiday episode, and it would be like the whole week before Thanksgiving because there wasn't any new programming on Thanksgiving week, and it kind of set the mood for the holiday way ahead of time in your child mind. So I like it. But then there's like some really bad specials. Like I'm thinking of the Lego Star Wars one was kind of
Oh
disappointing.
yeah, Life Day. Life Day just never never
Yeah,
really.
and then the one was it Marvel?
I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
We've
Disney will
watched a
do
bunch of
those. We
these
have, yeah.
holiday specials and I think I want to like them more than they are actually good, but I'll keep watching them.
But I definitely prefer this format to wasn't Spooky Buddies because that is a movie, but it was a television show. It was a series that was like of a piece with the Buddies franchise, like Ghost Buddies or something. And it was too much. It was like, I don't need 10 episodes of these ghost
Right,
dogs with their creepy CGI mouths.
right. That one was that the worst we've ever watched probably for this holiday?
I think it might be. Do you remember how the main characters were home renovators and yet they just lived in a house
It
covered
was
in
so
cobwebs?
cobwebby. That actually makes me want to watch it again a little bit.
I know. We'll definitely link to that episode in the show notes. It was fun to record, if not super fun to watch. Any other thoughts on the look of the special in terms of the animation?
This was fun. It was like very classic, like ghosts, ghosts, animation, haunted house stuff. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, perfectly inoffensive, which brings us to
Is this good for kids? Let me start with what makes this okay or good for kids because I have a really good analogy. So the scary elements are not actually scary, just like a mocktail.
oh, I like that.
Like you can enjoy a fancy drink without the,
Crippling hangover.
yeah. So that's how I would compare this. That's how I would describe this.
Yeah, I thought it was perfectly appropriate for kids, not too scary. And again, if they are fans of this book franchise and the film franchise, it's an easy fit into your holiday lineup.
Yeah, but moving on to what makes this inappropriate or otherwise bad for kids, I think like the Bad Guys franchise in general glorifies crime.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, is there an argument there, or am I being a little too, I don't know, extra about it? But yeah, there seems to be an argument to be made for promoting crime.
Yeah, like they're just planning a heist, like that's their job, which it is. There's no argument about is this maybe something we shouldn't be doing because we could get in trouble or it's unethical. There's there's none of that.
And I wonder if there's some way that like the lore talks around that in the books and it's just because we haven't been exposed to it in the long format.
Right.
Like, is the lesson learned in the movie that the bad guys can actually be good guys while pulling off their heists? I don't know.
Hmm.
Were you able to compare this to any shows or movies made for grown-ups?
It made me think a little bit of Good Girls, that
Uh-huh.
Christina Hendricks show.
Well, that's very similar to my poll. I wrote Ocean's 11, but a low rent version,
Yeah.
which then led me to the TV show Hustle, which I really enjoyed. It's like a British TV show about
Mm.
every episode is like a new heist that they're pulling off. And so things felt a little less tight because they were doing it from week to week and had to come up with a new concept.
Hmm.
So that felt to me like a apt comparison. How about casting the gritty HBO reboot? What do you have for us?
Well, we've been watching Bad Monkey, so Vince Vaughn is on my mind. So I would cast him. I would cast Riz Ahmed, Selena Gomez, and Natasha Rothwell
I like
as
that.
the bad guys. I think they all kind of have played characters that like are right on the edge of what's good.
Yeah. But
That
you're
Robin Hood.
charming, so it pushes us into the side of we think whatever you're doing must be fine.
Yeah, and we're rooting for you to pull off this crime. How about you? Were you able to cast it?
I was perhaps feeling a little catty as I sat down to write my gritty HBO reboot. So I thought I would cast a TV version of Ocean's 11 with a cast of actors who have failed to make the TV to movie transition. So we would have Taylor Kitsch as Rusty, who is the
Oh,
Brad Pitt character in the movies. Richard
is that
Madden.
Riggins?
Yeah, Riggins.
Yeah.
Richard Madden of Game of Thrones fame as Danny, because he's got that like dashing playboy look to him. Sophie Turner, speaking of Game of Thrones, as Tess. And Gaten Matarazzo from Stranger Things as Linus, the Matt Damon character. So I thought we could throw them a bone in this slightly lesser version of the more popular movie franchise.
Nice.
Do you think it was better when we were kids?
I mean, I kind of miss the old Scooby-Doo, but I think if I watched an old Scooby-Doo, I would realize it's not what I want my kids to be watching. Same with like the old Addams Family.
Oh, yeah? I haven't revisited those in forever.
They're probably terrible.
Oh, no. That hurts my heart.
Yeah. I have fond memories of Halloween spooky content from when I was a kid, but this is probably better.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we just watched actual scary things. Like, we did not really have as much kid-friendly spooky content made for us. So we watched like Return to Oz, which scarred us forever, or The Dark
Oh,
Crystal,
yeah.
or The Last
Yeah.
Unicorn, or actually scary things. So was that better or worse? I mean, I still have occasional nightmares about the Wheelers, so maybe this is better. I don't know. It is definitely
Oh,
more
Katie, I'm
careful.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
No, would you?
No, I would not, but it was a perfectly fine way to pass 24 minutes. How about some ratings? Where would you put this on our 1 to 5 star scale?
I would say a 4, and I'm being generous because I just don't have the context to fully appreciate the bad guys. So I'm airing a little high, I think.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, I'm going to go on the upper end of my scale with that in mind as well and give it a 3. See it or skip it.
I think see it. It's so short. Who cares if
Yep,
you don't like it or not?
yep, for sure. Great way to celebrate the season with your kids. Well, thank you for listening to our 200th episode and our little review of the Bad Guys Haunted Heist. Next week, we'll be back with a conversation about screen time in the news. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to one friend you think would enjoy it too. We love growing our community of parents for sanity and screen time. Never want to miss our up-to-the-minute thoughts about screen time? Head on over to our website at myscreentime2.com to subscribe to updates. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to, and sometimes because we like to. Bye!
Screen time,
Bye.
screen time, screen time.